Our top story for tonight, the Kansas City Chiefs are expecting a massive bounce back for Patrick Mahomes. A down year for Mahomes last year. If you were paying attention to the Player Profiler, if you were listening to Billy Muzio and I discuss the quarterbacks from last year, you'd have heard me be out on Patrick Mahomes. I had him down, quarterback 8, quarterback 10. Woo, boy, that was tough. It was rough, but you know who was right? I was right. Billy Muzio as my witness. And so there's been rumblings now out of Kansas City Chiefs camp that the Chiefs are looking to change their offense. They're looking to stretch the field. The beat writers are very excited about what they've been seeing out of camp so far from Mahomes and the receivers, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, when he's been there, Hollywood Brown, and a few other of the wide receivers. Yes, Justin Watson went down with an injury. We are monitoring that. But the Kansas City Chiefs are expecting shifts, massive shifts, from throwing to the likes of Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore, Marquez Valdes-Scantling down the field. No. This is the new Kansas City Chiefs. This is a downfield attack, and we're going to be discussing the differences we should expect from the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024 right after this. It was not a banner year for Patrick Mahomes. He finished as the quarterback 10 in fantasy points per game, only 27 passing touchdowns. That's disastrous. That's terrible. For reference, the previous seasons for Patrick Mahomes, 41, 37, 38, 26, and 50 passing touchdowns for Mahomes. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, but Bradley, what happened over the last couple years? What is the difference? And the difference was that the Chiefs were expecting the development of some of these wide receivers, the Sky Moores of the world. They traded for Kadarius Toney. Those are investments. I mean, Kadarius Toney originally was a first-round pick. Sky Moore, a second-round pick. Mecole Hardman was still around for the majority of the last 2 seasons. Yes, he spent a couple weeks with the Jets, but he was also second-round pedigree. The problem is these wide receivers have not been panning out as of late. And it wasn't until the second half of the season last year that Rashee Rice was able to come on and show that he was not just a situational guy, that he was able to maintain those high efficiency metrics. The PFF receiving grade, the yards per out run were very good for Rashee Rice. Even though he was an older prospect, there were some red flags about his profile coming out of college. Now, we also saw Mahomes just try his best to get the ball down the field. But when you have, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who has a career 50-something% reception rate, right? He's not going to catch balls down the field. He's a big play when you have not commanding targets. Then you got Kadarius Toney, who just can't get and stay on the field. And Sky Moore cannot adapt to the NFL. There's major issues in this receiving core that the Chiefs addressed this offseason. In particular, in 2 ways. One was the drafting of Xavier Worthy, the former first-round pick just this past April. Xavier Worthy, let's not forget, was the fastest combine runner of all time, 5'11", 165. His player profiler comp, you go to playerprofiler.com and you check out Xavier Worthy, his player profiler comp, Deshaun Jackson. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, it's been a minute since Deshaun Jackson's been in the NFL. It really hasn't. Deshaun Jackson last played 7 games in 2022. So really only 1.5 years of not having Deshaun Jackson in the NFL. But let's look at young Deshaun Jackson. Year 1, 2008 Deshaun Jackson went 62 for 912 and 2 touchdowns. Finishes the wide receiver 37. Okay. We don't hate that. Like, would you be upset if Deshaun Jackson, or Xavier Worthy in this instance, got 62 receptions for over 900 yards in his first season in the NFL as a rookie? That would be on track to pay off, right? In our dynasty leagues, in our best ball leagues. I'm sure that there were some spike weeks sprinkled in. And really, like, we want to talk about paying off at ADP when it comes to these types of players. And Xavier Worthy, when we're looking at the ADP, pulling it up right now, Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 38. So this comp works out. And for the dynasty streets, Deshaun Jackson, after his rookie season, so sophomore year 2, wide receiver 10, then wide receiver 17, wide receiver 31, wide receiver 40, wide receiver 12, wide receiver 20. So we saw a couple top 12 seasons out of Deshaun Jackson. That's the player profiler comp we have for Xavier Worthy. Extreme speed, built to burn. And that's what the Chiefs had been missing the last few years. MVS is a deep threat, but he's not a burner. He's not the speedster. And so you have a player who was extremely productive in college. You have a really good athletic profile paired with Patrick Mahomes. That was one addition. The other addition is Hollywood Brown. And Hollywood Brown was brought over from the Arizona Cardinals. He had spent some time with Baltimore. If you remember, he was originally, again, a first-round draft capital wide receiver out of Oklahoma. This is a 99th percentile speed scorer, or 40-yard dash type of guy. Hollywood Brown has historically had 22+% target shares. I mean, last year, 23% for Arizona. Yes, it seemed like something was just not right with Hollywood Brown in that Arizona offense. But rookie year, Hollywood Brown, even 19% target share. Sophomore year, Hollywood Brown, 26% target share. We've seen two guys who have been able to win and that type of profile now added to the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen wide receiver 21 finishes and wide receiver 27 PPR finishes in a season for Hollywood Brown. Now you tie him to former MVP, Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes, and you've got a team that can attack down the field. Mahomes last year set career lows in yards or yards per attempt at 7. We expect that number to jump. You should expect that number to jump. And so the Chiefs were realizing that they were kind of stifled in extending the spreading the field. They didn't have the field stretchers that could win downfield with speed, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. And so you have these players who are now changing the game plan for the Chiefs, because who is the only winner? Last year, it was Travis Kelce, and Kelce was dealing with the ankle injury himself to start the season, if you remember that. Kelce was dealing with injury, and it took him a while to get back into full form. And that was reflective of the drop in points per game and his lowering of yards per reception. Since the throw wasn't there deep, it didn't allow Mahomes time. Like, all he was doing, he knew that the guys down the field were not open. They were covered. They were not going to catch the ball. It wasn't going to be a good throw. It was a risky play. And instead, he just checked down Kelce. You just look at Kelce. And so you just go to Kelce. So that's why I don't have Kelce as a top 2 tight end this year. Kelce is tight end 4. So we haven't gone crazy. I haven't gone off the deep end. But when we look at the Kansas City Chiefs offense, we have Hollywood Brown, who is a 22 to 25% historically target share type of player. We have Xavier Worthy with first-round pedigree. And we have Rashee Rice, who came on as an extremely productive player. So we should be very, very interested in these 3 receiving weapons. The receiving core has significantly improved. We're not talking about Justin Watson getting significant wide receiver snaps. We're not talking about Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore getting significant receiver snaps. Mecole Hardman is an afterthought. He's maybe a punt returner. Fine, I don't care. He's got super speed. Not a great route runner, but fine. We're okay with that. And the Kansas City Chiefs beat writers have been noticing in camp that Mahomes and the offense are making pushes to throw the ball down the field. And if we see that, if we see a 15% increase in the yards per attempt, back up to what Mahomes was doing at the beginning of his career when he did have the speedster like Tyreek Hill, he's now got 2 guys who are 99th percentile 40-yard dash players, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. And then you sprinkle in a Rashee Rice. Yeah. So we're very interested in those players. To give you some projections before we move on to the next segment, Travis Kelce, I have projected for a 20% target share, 111 targets, 80 receptions, 830 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. Rashee Rice, I assumed, was going to be suspended. I have not yet adjusted for the anticipation of not being suspended. That's also been news. Rashee Rice has been practicing. So Rashee Rice, I had projected for an 18.5% target share over the course of the season, 90 targets, 70 receptions, 825 yards, 5 touchdowns. Hollywood, 101 targets, 59 receptions, 760 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns. Xavier Worthy, 52 receptions on 83 targets, 15% target share, 700 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. And so the only other receiving players of note, Justin Watson, 30 targets, Sky Moore, 22 targets, Noah Gray, 22 targets, right? Kadarius Toney, I'm projecting for like 20 touches this entire season, although there's been some rumblings that he's getting running back snaps. Maybe he gets the Jerick McKinnon role. That would be interesting, right? Just have him peel out of the backfield, boop, and just let the human joystick do his thing, because he can't get open downfield, so might as well just scheme some plays for him, get him open in space, and let him touch the ball 3 times and house 2 of them. Sounds great. Sounds great for fantasy. So the advice that I'm giving at this point is, even though Mahomes is still, in my opinion, still overvalued, he's being drafted like quarterback 5, quarterback 7, depends on where you're at. Obviously, Mahomes could get to quarterback 5. The pathway is now clearer, but we should still be reeling in and understanding that he was quarterback 10 last year. We have seen some shifts. How much is Hollywood Brown? How much is Xavier Worthy going to improve the downfield attack? Because one of the reasons why Mahomes dropped 3 years ago in terms of yards per attempt was not because Tyreek Hill had left. Tyreek Hill was still on the team in 2021 when Mahomes dropped to 7.4 yards per attempt. The reason why is because teams were playing two shell coverage. They were playing two up top. They were double covering, essentially, not sending one safety down into the middle of the field. They were playing too high. And so that really limited the downfield attack of the Kansas City Chiefs in 2021. Then Tyreek Hill gone, teams less likely to do that. Mahomes made adjustments, 8.1 yards per attempt. We could see a bounce up in yards per attempt yet again, back to about 8 or so is what we're looking at. So a 15% increase in the yards per attempt. We could see significant improvement in the passing yards. Mahomes last year, not even 4,200 passing yards, whereas he had 5,200 and 4,800 in the previous 2 seasons. So we expect more yardage from Mahomes, a more efficient Chiefs passing offense, and more evenly distributed, right? Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. I don't think you have an alpha of alphas among those players. I still project, Travis Kelce to get his and to have the most targets on the Chiefs. But other than that, I have all 3 of the other wide receivers between 80 and about 100 targets. So pretty flat. That's how we should anticipate and treat these Kansas City Chiefs. Mahomes is good. Travis Kelce is good. But will they be great? Is Xavier Worthy going to unlock MVP Patrick Mahomes for 2024? That remains to be seen. What does not remain to be seen is our draft kit here, Player Profiler. Make sure that you're checking out our draft kit. More about the draft kit in just a moment.
Hey, it's the Podfather. I have great news. The draft kit is live. It is world famous. Why? Because it is the best resource for winning fantasy football championships that exists. There are rankings and cheat sheets for every format you can imagine. We have projections both at the team level and the player level. And wherever you are, you can click on a player, open them up, and see in-depth written analysis about what to expect in fantasy football from that player this year. And then you can click on the team, and you can get even more in-depth analysis, all the drivers of fantasy production, both in a positive and negative direction for that team, including a signature trend. And the graphics are incredible. So these team insights, they give you the team-level projections, the vacated targets, the vacated ARs. And we added a bunch of features. Individual cheat sheets for Theo and Billy and Dario. So you could take your favorite analyst and download their personal draft cheat sheet. And then in the commissioners section, Memphis Young lays out everything you need to know to manage a league, the best minds in the industry contributing analysis. It's certainly not the most inexpensive draft kit on the market, but it is the best. PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit, PlayerProfiler.com/draft kit. Go get it.
That's right. Go get it at Player Profiler. You can also get my cheat sheet. Matt, let's get the promo up. My cheat sheet is also available. Bradley Stalder, my cheat sheet is available. I am going to update the Patrick Mahomes given these shifts, given the notice that the beat writers have been observing. I am sensitive to the news and also able to distill what is news and what is noise. It makes sense based on the personnel that they've added and based on the news that we've been hearing out of camp. So we're going to make those adjustments. I'm moving Patrick Mahomes up as a result. However, we have to move down Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller got injured again in the offseason. This is a major problem. And he's been a big sleeper for me. I thought he would be the next Kyren Williams. He had the draft capital, right? He's young. He overcame an injury. He got some love near the end of the season. Alvin Kamara's old. He's one running back removed from getting the starting role, but that's not going to be it for Kendre Miller. He is in the doghouse. Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints, came out and said, and I quote, "That's a player who needs to figure out how to stay healthy because you can't make the team in the training room. You can feel the tension. You can taste the seething. You can hear and feel Dennis Allen, the spit coming out of his mouth while he's talking, just how angry he is about this situation. They invested 3rd-round draft capital just over a year ago on this running back, And they've been extremely disappointed with what he's been able to bring to the team because he can't be on the field. He's even threatening him. You can't make the team in the training room. Now, maybe that's hyperbole. But at the same time, Dennis Allen is one of the worst head coaches in the NFL. He will lose the room. He will lose the team with comments like this. Like, what? Why? And even if it's taken out of context, because Lord knows, things can get taken out of context. No, you don't say these types of things unless you really are threatening your player. We've seen coaches put players in the doghouse before, right? We know Shanahan likes to put players in the doghouse, whether it was Trey Sermon, whether it was Brandon Ayuk, whether it was, Dante Pettis, right? Trey Lance was in the doghouse, right? And so we've seen coaches put players in the doghouse. Dennis Allen, he's putting Kendre Miller in the doghouse. Not only does Kendre Miller have to overcome this injury, but he also has to overcome the negative coach speak that Dennis Allen is putting him under. So our concern is that, yes, Kendre Miller, RB46 right now, going in the 13th round. I want hands off. There are a lot of other good options in the Kendre Miller area. So let me give you some alternatives. If you're thinking about, I want to get some Kendre Miller. Okay, in the same tier realm as Kendre Miller. So Kendre Miller is going into RB46, 148 overall. We're going to go back to 136 as our cutoff. So within a round, because then at that point, you're going to have people who are dropping. Give me Rico Dowdle over Kendre Miller. Give me Marshawn Lloyd. Give me Ty Chandler. Give me Tyler Algier. Give me Chuba Hubbard. Give me Ray Davis. Give me J.K. Dobbins over Kendre Miller. There's not good arguments for Kendre Miller over any of those players. He's hurt. He's in the doghouse. Yeah, look, he's going to have to beat out Alvin Kamara, who was the running back 3 in fantasy points per game last season. Kamara was RB3. Oh, but Kamara is getting old. Kamara is falling off. Kamara doesn't have the efficiency metrics. Alvin Kamara hasn't had the efficiency metrics for 3 years. It doesn't matter. Alvin Kamara can catch passes out of the backfield. He is trusted by this Saints coaching staff. And now they have a more dynamic offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, who's going to get guys moving in space. You expect a lot more motion, a lot more movement, and that creates space because it keeps the defense even a little bit more off balance. Expect more for Alvin Kamara. If Kendre Miller is going down, Kamara is going up, but so is, at least in the tight end realm, Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is going to get some more rushes. Taysom Hill is going to be more involved. They love Taysom Hill in New Orleans. They have him in the tight end room, but they also have him in the quarterback room and the running back room. He's in all of the rooms. Which room is he not in? And so the reality is he's going to get more touches. He's trusted. The Saints don't have a lot of playmakers. It's Kamara, it's Olave, it's Rashid Shaheed, it's Juwan Johnson if he's healthy. Taysom Hill is the answer. I've been pounding the table for Taysom Hill for months now. Kendre Miller's injury is just another reason we need to be in on Taysom Hill. I don't care that Taysom Hill is 33 years old. I don't care that Alvin Kamara is 28 years old. I don't care. The Saints want to get these players touches. That's what matters. And no, I haven't forgotten about Jamal Williams, but Jamal Williams is not going to make a big difference when it comes to how the Saints offense is going to operate. Jamal Williams, we know he's inefficient. And we saw last year that it was Alvin Kamara who got the majority of goal line, the majority of receiving receptions out of the backfield for the running back position when healthy. So yes, we want these players, Taysom Hill, Alvin Kamara, for the New Orleans Saints. We want in on them. We want to avoid Kendre Miller. and just move on with our lives. The last thing I want to talk about is Diontae Johnson. Head coach Dave Canales came out and said that their first thought on offense is, where is Diontae Johnson? You can almost think of this as the game in the 90s. I don't know if y'all grew up in the 90s or the early aughts. This game extended even earlier than that. But where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? They're going to be playing where in the world is Diontae Johnson, and not in a bad way. Diontae Johnson has a history of being hyper targeted by his offense. Okay. And yes, Johnson is not like the alpha among alphas. He's not a Jamar Chase. He's not a Devontae Adams. And yes, he's had some down seasons the last couple of years due to injury, due to bad quarterback play, right? But in 2021, Diontae Johnson, 107 receptions, 169 targets. He had 3 straight seasons of 140 targets or more. I mean, we can look at what his target shares have been: 23%, 24%, 25%. 2021, it was 28.5%. Dave Canales is going to get Diontae Johnson hyper-targeted. Panthers went out. They acquired Diontae Johnson. They also drafted Xavier Legette to support Bryce Young. Bryce Young now a viable back-end quarterback too. I'm not super duper excited about Bryce Young from a fantasy perspective, but he might be a nice floor guy. If he's able to get the ball to Diontae Johnson, that'll move the chains. That'll put the Panthers in scoring positions. I don't think Diontae Johnson is in the realm of getting back to 8 touchdowns, but 6, 7 touchdowns, that's fine. We're happy with that. And then if the offense continues to improve, and then you see after the course of about 4 weeks, the involvement of a Jonathan Brooks, that's going to make a difference. That's going to be a major difference maker for the Carolina Panthers, because then they will have Legette, they'll have Brooks, which are first and second round draft capital investments. And then you have Diontae Johnson, who, draft capital back when he was taken by the Steelers was 3rd round. So you've got players with pedigree on this offense. Bryce Young, obviously the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft, not taken by, this coaching staff, but inherited by this coaching staff and looking to build around Bryce Young. So a player like Diontae Johnson, who can get open and can be available, over 1,100 air yards last year in just 13 games. So that's very exciting for the Carolina Panthers. We want to be seeing, Diontae Johnson right now, who is being drafted. Man, you have to even scroll down. It's terrible. Wide receiver 42. And we're talking about the possibility of 130, 140 targets for Diontae Johnson. You love to see it for Johnson. You would love to see it for the Carolina Panthers and for your fantasy teams. The other part is that Carolina faces off against Tampa Bay in week 17, and that game could turn into a nice little bit of a revenge game shootout. Dave Canales versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's going to be a fun fight when it's Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. That's a sneaky shootout type of game. So when we're drafting, we want to keep all these things in mind. I also want to remind those who are watching to check out playerprofiler.com/news. Playerprofiler.com/news. We have a news stream. We're putting up multiple news items every day that are the most relevant to you. You don't get fluff. You don't get bogus crud. You get the most meaningful news that should change your mind about a player. That's the litmus test that I tell my guys. If it changes the mind and it's based on fact, we need to get it in there. And so we've got some great news items, even just today, with regard to the Courtland Sutton contract update. We have a quote from Jim Harbaugh about Quentin Johnston. Russell Wilson still expected to start week 1. And we got a blurb about Hendon Hooker, the backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions, who's off to a strong start in camp. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to be on later tonight on the main channel for Player Profiler with Dan Williamson to discuss the Pros versus Joes tournament on the FFPC. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to look at some boards. We're going to talk strategy. We're going to talk the history of Pros versus Joes. We're going to talk about Darren Armani. Thanks. Shout out to him. Appreciate it. I've got my Pros versus Joes jacket right here. Right here. You can see it. Yeah, there we go. Draft responsibly. That's what it says at the bottom here. The camera. Draft responsibly. That's right. We do want to draft responsibly. And that's why we bring you the best content in the entire fantasy football industry. We want you to draft responsibly. Check out Stack Hunters tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern on the main channel for Player Profiler. Until then, everyone, good luck in the fantasy football streets.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.